On the night of June 7, 2021, a 911 dispatcher in Colleton County, South Carolina picked up the phone. The man on the other end was crying. He said he had come home to find his wife and his son dead. His name was Alex Murdaugh, attorney, patriarch, the most powerful man in the county. And in that moment, to everyone who heard that call, to the dispatchers, to the first responders, to the entire community of Hampton County, he was simply a husband and a father destroyed by grief. That's what they believed. It would take 2 years, hundreds of investigators, millions of dollars in stolen money, and the testimony of the man himself before the truth finally came out. In the deep south of South Carolina, where the Spanish moss hangs heavy and the rivers run brown and slow, there is a place called the Low Country, Hampton County. A poor, quiet stretch of timberland and flat roads, where everyone knows everyone, and where, for nearly a century, one family ruled it all: the Murdaughs. For 87 consecutive years, a Murdaugh served as the chief prosecutor for a 5-county region of South Carolina. They built a law firm. They built a name. They built a dynasty. And Richard Alexander Murdaugh, known to everyone simply as Alex, was born into the very center of it. He was a big man in every sense: a personal injury attorney, a partner in the family firm, a father, a husband, a storyteller with a thick southern drawl who moved through the world like a man who had never once been told no. His wife, Maggie, was warm and beloved. His younger son, Paul, was 22, loud in a room, a passionate hunter, a young man with plans and a future. His older son, Buster, was building his own life. From the outside, the Murdaughs had everything. What no one knew was that underneath it all, Alex Murdaugh was quietly falling apart. The night of June 7, 2021, began like any other on the Mossy Oak hunting estate, a sprawling 1,700-acre property in Colleton County that the Murdaughs had owned for generations. Maggie had driven in from their beach house that afternoon. Paul was already there. Sometime that evening, the three of them walked down to the dog kennels together, roughly 200 yards from the main house. And then, sometime in the darkness of that Monday night, someone opened fire. At 10:07 p.m., a 911 dispatcher received a call. It was Alex Murdaugh. His voice was urgent, desperate. He said he had come home to find his wife and son dead. First responders arrived within minutes. Maggie was lying in the dirt road near the kennels. She had been shot 5 times with a semi-automatic rifle. Paul was found nearby. He had been shot twice with a shotgun, the second time, at close range, to the head. The violence was overwhelming. It was deliberate. It was personal. 2 different weapons, 2 different victims. No witnesses, no intruders. No one had seen a thing. Alex Murdaugh stood at the scene in tears, pacing, asking questions. He told investigators he had been gone about 40 minutes, visiting his dying father at a nearby property, and had returned to find them. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division was called in. Investigators arrived, and the community of Hampton County, stunned and frightened, held its breath. The early days of the investigation were shaped by something unspoken but powerful: the weight of the Murdaugh name. In a county where that name had meant the law for nearly a century, the instinct was to look outward, to search for a stranger, an enemy, a rival. Early theories spread quickly. Could it have been someone with a grudge over a boat crash? In February 2019, Paul Murdaugh had been at the wheel of a boat that struck a bridge on the Broad River. 5 passengers. One of them, a 19-year-old girl named Mallory Beach, was thrown into the water and never came home alive. Paul had faced felony charges. The Beach family had filed a civil lawsuit. There was grief. There was anger. Could that have led here? Investigators pursued it. They found nothing. What they found instead was something much closer to home. Paul had been recording a Snapchat video at the kennels that night, just minutes before the murders. A 55-second clip of the dogs. And buried in the audio of that video was a voice that analysts would later identify as belonging to Alex Murdaugh. Alex had originally told investigators he had not been at the kennels that evening. Now there was audio evidence suggesting he was there, with Maggie and Paul, just before they died. When confronted, Alex changed his story. He said he had simply forgotten to mention it. He had been to the kennels before leaving for his parents. He had just forgotten. Investigators wrote it down, and they kept going. 3 months after the murders, the story took a turn that shocked even those following closely. On September 4th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh pulled his car to the side of a rural Hampton County road and called a man named Curtis Smith, his longtime drug dealer, known locally as Cousin Eddie. Alex told him he wanted to die. He asked Smith to shoot him in the head so that his surviving son, Buster, could collect a $10 million life insurance payout. Smith fired. The bullet grazed Alex's skull. He survived. The cover story, that he had been shot by a stranger while fixing a tire, collapsed almost immediately. And then the real story began to emerge. Alex Murdaugh had been running a financial fraud scheme for years. He had created a fake company called Forge, routing client settlement money that should have gone to people who had been injured, who had lost loved ones, who trusted their attorney, into his own accounts instead. He spent it on drugs, on debt, on maintaining the illusion of a life he could no longer afford. Among his victims, a woman named Gloria Satterfield. She had worked as the Murdaugh family's housekeeper for years. She died in 2018 after falling at the Murdaugh home. Alex had encouraged her sons to sue him, assured them they would be compensated. He negotiated a $4 million settlement on their behalf. Not a penny ever reached them. In total, investigators calculated that Alex Murdaugh had stolen approximately $8.7 million from clients. Dozens of victims, hundreds of charges, a lifetime of deception. And suddenly, the motive for the murders became devastatingly clear. In the months before June 7, 2021, a civil lawsuit arising from the Mallory Beach boat crash had been pressing forward. The Beach family's attorney was demanding financial disclosures from Alex, records that, if honestly produced, would have exposed the entire Forge scheme. A deposition was coming. A mediation conference was scheduled. The walls were closing in. Investigators came to believe that Alex Murdaugh killed his wife and his son to generate sympathy, to create enough grief and chaos that the depositions would be delayed, the attention would shift, and he could buy a little more time to outrun the truth. A man who had been lying for 20 years had one more lie left in him, the biggest one of all. On July 14, 2022, more than a year after the murders, Alex Murdaugh was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. He was held without bail. The trial began on January 23, 2023, in the Colleton County Courthouse in Walterboro. It lasted 6 weeks. The nation watched. The prosecution built their case brick by brick. Cell phone records placing Alex at the scene during the murders, the Snapchat video, bloodstain analysis on his clothing, patterns inconsistent with merely finding the bodies, consistent with being present at the shootings. The financial motive laid out in painstaking detail. The 2 missing weapons, both from the Murdaugh property's own inventory, never recovered. The defense argued the case was entirely circumstantial. No murder weapon, no eyewitness, no confession. An innocent man, they said, who had lied in a moment of panic, not guilt. Then Alex Murdaugh took the stand. He cried. He spoke about his addiction. He spoke about his love for Maggie and Paul. He insisted, looking directly at the jury, that he had not killed them. And then the prosecutor, Creighton Waters, crossed him. He asked Alex about the lie, the specific lie. Why, when investigators first asked, had he said he was not at the kennels that night? Alex Murdaugh had no answer that held together. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They came back with 2 words: guilty. Judge Clifton Newman sentenced Alex Murdaugh to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. And before he did, he looked at the man in front of him and said, "I believe that deep down, you know the truth, and one day, you will tell it." Alex Murdaugh maintained his innocence and was taken away. Maggie Murdaugh was 52 years old. Paul Murdaugh was 22. They are buried on the grounds of Mossy Oak, the property where they died. The Beach family found what closure the law could offer. Gloria Satterfield's sons eventually received a settlement, years late, paid by insurance companies, after a man they trusted had stolen everything they were owed. The Stephen Smith case, a young man found dead on a Hampton County road in 2015, remains open. Questions linger. The Murdaugh dynasty is over. The law firm, the name, the 100-year grip on the 14th Circuit, gone. The hunting estate has been sold. The family that once presided over this corner of South Carolina like royalty is reduced to a cautionary tale. Alex Murdaugh sits in a South Carolina prison. He says he is innocent.